Imagine this. The government bans social media overnight, and within days, tens of thousands of young people pour into the streets. This is not fiction. This is Nepal in September 2025. Over the past week, Nepal witnessed massive protests after the government restricted access to more than 24 social media platforms. Authorities argued that these platforms failed to register locally. But for the youth, this was not just about apps. It was about freedom, frustration, and the right to be heard. The ban was the immediate trigger, but the context runs deeper. Rising unemployment, frustration with corruption, and generational disillusionment have created fertile ground for unrest. The Gen Z population, already restless, saw the ban as the last straw. Narration. In a striking irony, the attempt to restrict digital platforms only accelerated digital mobilization. Young people used alternative apps, private groups, even gaming platforms like Discord to coordinate protests. Within hours, demonstrations spread across Kathmandu and beyond. Clashes between protesters and security forces turned violent. Reports spoke of dozens of deaths and many more injured. The government responded with curfews, tear gas, and internet shutdowns, but the movement only grew stronger. Collectives and civil society groups played an important role. One organization often mentioned is Hami Nepal, a youth-driven network that has been active in mobilizing young voices. Alongside, local NGOs and student unions provided medical help and legal aid. The pressure was immediate. Within days, Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli faced mounting calls to resign. The government was forced to lift restrictions on social media platforms, though the political crisis is far from over. The protests revealed a generational demand for accountability in the wider region. Nepal is not just a neighbor, it's a strategic partner. Instability there can affect trade, border security, and diplomatic relations. But beyond geopolitics, the episode reminds us of a universal question. How should democracies regulate digital platforms without eroding civil liberties? For UPSC aspirants, this event connects to multiple dimensions: governance, regulation of social media, freedom of expression, international relations, India-Nepal ties, and regional stability. In conclusion, Nepal's Gen Z protests are not just about a ban. They are about deeper frustration, democratic aspirations, and the power of youth mobilization. For policymakers, the lesson is clear. Regulation without dialogue can backfire. For students, the takeaway is simple. Connect every event to larger governance and societal themes. When we talk about Nepal's Gen Z protests, two dimensions often remain underexplored: the influence of foreign funding in civil society and the deep-rooted problem of political nepotism. These two factors, combined with city organizations, played a visible role in the protests. One group frequently mentioned is Hami Nepal, a youth-driven platform that provided coordination, awareness, and support to demonstrators. Reports suggest that such organizations have occasionally benefited from foreign funding, whether directly through international NGOs or indirectly through diaspora networks. Foreign funding is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can empower civil society, provide resources for advocacy, and help amplify the voices of marginalized communities. On the other hand, critics argue that external money may distort domestic priorities, undermine sovereignty, and create avenues for undue influence. This is not a challenge unique to Nepal. India itself has debated this issue through the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, FCRA. The central question remains the same. How do democracies strike a balance between enabling vibrant civil society and protecting national sovereignty? The second dimension is political nepotism. Nepal's politics has long been dominated by a small set of families and entrenched party elites. Positions of power are often circulated among well-connected dynasties, while meritocratic, young, and capable leaders remain sidelined. For Gen Z, this creates disillusionment. They see a political class that is unaccountable, detached, and more focused on preserving family legacies than solving real problems. When social media was restricted, it was not just the loss of platforms. It became a symbol of a system that silences dissent while protecting privilege. Nepotism erodes trust in institutions. It weakens democracy by limiting diversity in leadership and discouraging innovation in governance. For a young population struggling with unemployment and lack of opportunities, this feels like a betrayal. Their anger, therefore, was not only about Facebook or Instagram, it was about dynastic politics itself. When we connect these two threads, foreign-funded activism and domestic nepotism, the picture becomes clearer. Civil society, with or without external support, channeled youth frustration into collective action. And that frustration was magnified by decades of political families holding on to power without meaningful reform. The lesson is that protests are rarely about one single policy decision. They are the outcome of deeper structural issues: governance failures, lack of representation, and alienation of the young. Nepal's Gen Z revolt is in that sense a symptom of democracy under strain. For UPSC aspirants, these two dimensions are crucial. In GS Paper 2, this connects to the role of NGOs, regulation of foreign funding, and democratic accountability. In international relations, it raises questions about sovereignty and the role of external actors in domestic politics. In GS Paper 4, Ethics, Nepotism is a classic case study of how personal interests can weaken institutional integrity. In conclusion, the Nepal protests remind us that youth movements are not created in a vacuum. They are fueled by long-standing grievances. Foreign funding may provide resources, but nepotism ensures anger. Together, they turned a ban into a battle cry. For policymakers, the message is clear. Democratic resilience depends on transparency, meritocracy, and trust. If you found this useful, do share your thoughts in the comments. Could such a protest happen in India? Subscribe for crisp current affairs explained simply for UPSC.